Welcome to the Brisbane Property Podcast with your hosts Melinda and Scott Jennison.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Brisbane Property Podcast. My name's Scott Jennison. I'm the Acquisitions Manager here at Streamline Property Buyers. Just wanted to, obviously today with the market moving here in Brisbane, we're going to break things down a little bit and help people understand what your money actually buys.
It is a very interesting topic, and welcome back everybody to the Brisbane Property Podcast. I am Melinda Jennison, Managing Director here at Streamline Property Buyers, and we often get questions from potential clients wanting to understand what their money will buy. And the biggest frustration for a lot of buyers at the moment in Brisbane is that most sales listings do not have a price. And therefore, when you are shopping for a new home or an investment property, there is often quite a difference between what your money will buy and what your expectations might be in terms of what you expect your money to buy. And so we're going to really break down some of those barriers today to help you understand more about what a median value might show versus what the reality is of what that median value price might provide for you.
Yeah, and I think it's always good for people to understand. We do get people to reach out here at Streamline Property Buyers to chat to us, and we're very open when we talk to people about, you know, what they can afford with the budget they have. So obviously, if you've spoken to your broker or your bank and you've got an idea of what your budget is, obviously you need to understand what you can buy, because the market is moving, and it has been moving month on month now for quite a few months, I believe. And it's getting away from some people. So they might think that they've got a budget for a certain property and they start to shop, and obviously they're missing out. And the more you miss out, the more it's probably going to cost you because that market keeps on moving up and you're missing out on those opportunities. So you really need to understand what your budget will buy so that you shop in the right locations for the right type of product to match what you're looking for. So, I mean, Greater Brisbane has moved quite a bit.
It certainly has. And obviously our Market Update podcast episodes will provide further clarity on the magnitude of price movement here in Brisbane over recent months. But certainly both in the townhouse unit segment of the market and also in the housing segment of the market, the trajectory of prices is still upward here in Brisbane. We've actually broken down at a median value level for all of Greater Brisbane how much price growth is happening on a month-by-month basis. So right now, to the end of September, according to CoreLogic data, the median value for a house in all of Greater Brisbane is sitting at $848,680. So that is the price that you will pay for the middle property that has been sold in the most recent month. Now, remembering, and I have addressed this in recent podcasts or plenty of podcasts in the past, a median value is a reflection of the middle property value that has sold. So every property that's sold in the last month is ranked from the lowest value property through to the highest value property. And the median is simply the middle score. So a median is actually subject to what we call compositional bias. What actually sells can influence the median value, upward or down. For example, in some locations where you might have a lot of brand new housing stock coming into a market, that can significantly shift a median value upward. A lot of buyers or inexperienced property commentators might see that as a reflection of price growth. However, that's a reflection of what is actually selling, not true price growth. And that's the difference between really understanding what the data is telling you and purely looking at data on face value. So that's the housing segment of the market. And remembering this data is for all of Greater Brisbane. Yep. And again, in the past, we've talked about, you know, what CoreLogic data is made up of in Greater Brisbane. And that is everything in Southeast Queensland except for the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast. It's a huge geographical location. And you must understand that what is happening in one part of Greater Brisbane might be very different to what is happening in another part of Greater Brisbane. So we're going to really focus in on what is happening or some of the median values in Brisbane City Council region today and some suburbs in Brisbane City Council region, because what's happening in the inner and middle ring locations is often quite different to what's happening in the outer ring locations. So that's the sort of broad perspective of what we're going to provide today.
So as Melinda's mentioned there, when we talk about Greater Brisbane, and we will keep reminding you about this, because Greater Brisbane is such a big footprint. So the median price for houses in Greater Brisbane, 848,680. Unit prices, 539,169. Obviously, in our market updates, we'll give you all this information as well. And the growth in that in the last month, you're talking about the unit prices. That's an increase of around $3,252
every week.
Every week.
Every week.
Sorry. And then houses, 4,108.
Every week. That's the latest rate of growth. So as Scott's pointed out, the unit median value across all of Greater Brisbane, 539,169. That is for both units and townhouses. Anything under a body corporate scheme here in Brisbane is classified under the unit data for CoreLogic. So it does include that townhouse type of product as well. And as we've rightly pointed out, because of the rate of growth and the magnitude of growth that has been occurring in Brisbane, houses and units have both been growing at a much faster pace than what most individuals would be able to save in their take-home income. So when you're looking at weekly price movement at a median value level of $4,108 for a house and median price movement of $3,252 for a unit, that is a significant shift in the value of properties on a week-by-week basis. And this is what we have now been seeing consistently over the last 3 to 4 months here in Brisbane. We've had 9 months of positive growth, and CoreLogic are now predicting that Brisbane will reach a new peak sometime in October this year.
So basically on that, in that median price, as we're talking about, that 848, so say roughly 850, you've just over $4,000 a week you need to save. So providing you can save that out of your take-home income, that's the sort of money you need to actually save. And that's the median price for Greater Brisbane. When we break this down and we break it down into different areas, you know, your blue chip sort of areas are around that early ones, even to 1.4, 1.5, that sort of. So obviously that's going to go up. So you need to understand the difference then when we start to get into different areas, and we do location selection, not in all of Greater Brisbane, but bring it in a bit tighter to the more blue chip sort of areas.
So if you're wanting to understand the true rate of market appreciation in Brisbane, our market update podcast will provide that information for you. And then if you understand the property price that you're shopping at, then you can apply that rate of growth to that price to understand what is the opportunity cost of delaying your decision to buy in the market that you're looking to purchase into. Because obviously if you're looking at a $2 million property type or a $2 million home, and the market's growing at 1.3 or 1.4% per month, you can do the maths to work out the opportunity cost of delay in that regard. Because obviously if the market's moving at that rate and your budget's $2 million, that's a significant shift on a month-by-month basis. What I will say, though, before we get down to some suburb level specifics, is when we are talking to clients about what their money will buy in a specific location, we always talk about the 4 components that make up the value of a property. And these are the 4 things that every buyer needs to consider to understand how they would rank their priorities in terms of what they're willing to compromise on. The first is price. Obviously, if you're willing to pay more, you will get more, a better location, a better home, a larger block of land. That is obviously, you know, that goes without saying. But for most individuals, price is going to be capped. There's going to be a specific budget that most buyers are shopping with, and that may be a predetermined amount that the bank has set as your maximum borrowing capacity, or it may be a comfort level, which is an amount that you have determined you're most comfortable spending on the property. Price is the first thing. Then we talk about location. And location matters because the value of land on a per square metre basis is significantly different across different suburbs and different locations throughout all of Greater Brisbane. For example, a 400 square metre block of land in a blue chip location 4 kilometres from the Brisbane CBD will be worth significantly more than a 400 square metre block of land in a new estate in parts of Greater Brisbane, which may be in the Moreton Bay Shire, the Ipswich Shire, the Logan Shire, or the Redlands Shire. So that goes without saying that the value of land per square metre will vary depending on where you are purchasing. So location also matters. Quality. Now, this is a big one that a lot of people don't understand the difference that quality can make to the purchase price. To buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, double lock-up garage car in a specific location for a specific budget, the one thing that you may need to compromise on is quality. And what that means is you may not get the very best finishes if you're wanting to stay in a particular location that you don't want to compromise on the size of the home and your budget is fixed. Then it's the quality lever that we can change. And obviously, quality is something that scares a lot of people at the moment. We're seeing some discounted properties still when there's work to do, when a builder needs to be engaged to do some significant heavy lifting in terms of renovation and improvement works. Those properties are still less favourable than the properties that are ready to move into. So quality matters in determining part of, those compromises that a buyer might be prepared to make. And the final lever that we discuss with all of our clients is size. That is land size as well as property size. Obviously, the larger the home in a given location, the more expensive it is going to be. And the opposite is also true, depending on the quality. So these are the 4 things that we always discuss with our clients to determine what are they prepared to compromise on to find the type of property that they're looking for, whether that is a home or an investment in the location that they're wanting to buy. And if there's no compromise on quality or size or budget, it is the location lever that we need to discuss with those people, because you simply cannot create miracles and you simply cannot find something that doesn't exist in a target location if you're not willing to compromise on the quality, the size, or the budget that you're prepared to pay.
So we'll give some people some ideas. Obviously, the people down south that are, especially the people down south that are looking to move up here into beautiful Queensland and get ready for next year when the Lions and the Broncos have a bit of a revenge and make up for their losses this year in their premierships. But gives you an idea then of cost and what we talk about. Now, the other thing we need to remind people, and you did touch a little bit on when you were talking there, Melinda, about location. We were at a PIPA conference recently, which is a Property Investment Professionals of Australia. And one of the speakers in there talked about location. And he actually broke down in a simple way to say that if you're a local, you'll know location. So using someone local, knowing these locations. And when we talk about these locations we're about to talk now, when we talk about median prices and what you actually buy, we think what you buy up here in Brisbane compared to other capitals, you get pretty good bang for your buck, what you can actually get. But that compromise that you talked about and that location, to come back down towards that, what we look at sort of median price now, you're really going to compromise probably on things like being on busy roads or an older type of property and things like that. So Bill, help me understand a little bit more about that. So if we break down a couple of suburbs, and we've picked just a couple of random ones here. Grange, which is on the north side of Brisbane.
So in the suburb of Grange, it's a very popular family-friendly suburb. In fact, 76% of the demographic who live there are owner-occupiers. So it's heavily dominated by people that buy in the area. There's some great school catchments. So they buy for the schools, but they also buy for the lifestyle because it's very close to the Kedron Brook, which runs through the northern suburbs of Brisbane. So very good for lifestyle, very good for bringing up children, some very good kindergarten and school options very close by. So the median value, according to CoreLogic, up to the end of September for a house in Grange is $1,480. Now, I don't know if anyone in the podcast audience has been shopping in Grange just recently, certainly over the last 2 or 3 months. But when I look at the median value as reported by CoreLogic and I apply that to what that budget would have purchased in Grange just recently, what I can tell you is that you would have been buying on a busy main road or a home that needs a lot of work. Yeah. So, for example, if you're wanting to live on one of the main thoroughfares through the Grange, which does carry a lot of traffic, a 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom, 2 double lock-up garage home on 405 square metres would have set you back $1.5 million, but you will have heavy traffic at your doorstep day and night. If you're wanting to do a complete renovation, a 2-bed, 1-bath property in August sold for $1.37 million. So that is what your budget in Grange will buy if you're shopping around that median value of $1.48 million. And this is the big thing that a lot of people simply don't understand. And sometimes, especially for those buyers that are not interstate, that are not local, that don't understand which roads carry traffic, a listing on realestate.com or Domain can actually look quite attractive. It can look like there's very little impact on that property. But until you know the local area and you understand how that traffic flows, it's very difficult to be able to make an assumption on the value of a property based on not understanding that location.
Now, it gives you an idea that, and look, Grange is surrounded, Grange, Wilston, Windsor, really nice little areas, as you talked about. People looking to, one, compromise on that busy road and put up with that traffic all the time. The other, when you talk about the renovation side of it, you're looking for a renovator which is just under that median range, but don't forget your construction costs. Okay, so construction costs, as we know, and everyone's talked about this nationwide, what's happened with the construction industry, but from what people probably think a renovation will cost, its construction costs have gone up about 30 to 40%. So you need to make sure you actually know what those costs are going to be. You can't just say, oh, look, we think we could do about that because that's what we used to renovate for. Those sort of properties, when they're renovated in these areas, will push up to much, much higher value, which completely blows that median price away. So you also got to understand that when Melinda said 76% of people are owner-occupiers, people will buy into these locations and don't tend to sell too fast. They buy in these locations because they want to live there, and they will generally live for a long period of time because it's a good neighborhood, it's got good schools, it's got access to transport, it's a good lifestyle, and they generally knuckle down and they actually stay there for quite a long time, which means their houses are not selling. So there's not as many houses that will sell in these big areas as well.
So if I come back to those 4 things that we talked about being price, location, quality, and size before, and if we're staying in Grange and if we're moving above the median value, so we're now looking at a similar property on a 405 square metre block, which is a 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom, double lock-up garage style property. If you are now in a quieter pocket of Grange, that type of home would be selling for high ones into the early 2s, possibly into the mid 2s, depending on the quality. And then if you are looking at a brand new build that's been specced up on a 405 square metre block of land in Grange, in a quiet pocket, you could be paying up to high 2s for that type of product. So in the same suburb, you can understand how a difference in the selection of street or location can make such a huge difference to the price that you pay, depending on the quality of the home as well. And so this is where you need to understand the difference and the integration of all of these factors before you can make a decision around what a property might be worth.
And your general land size, as we've talked about previously, in these sort of areas, we're talking, you're talking the 810s or the 405s. You don't get a lot of 600s. As you get closer to the city, generally, we had the 405s, double blocks became the 810s. If they can subdivide them, they go back to the 405s. But generally, that's the sort of size of block of land, which is what Melinda's talking about when we go into those sort of properties as well.
Although I will actually go on to say, and this really comes down to local knowledge, is that the city side of Grange will predominantly be your larger 810s and your smaller 405 square metre blocks. Whereas if you're moving into the northern parts of Grange, closer to the Kedron Brook, you'll have a lot of 600 square metre blocks. Yep. Because that's where you'll have a change in land zoning, becomes low density zoning. It's where a lot of the older post-war homes have been purchased, demolished, and a lot of brand new builds have been created. And in that pocket and in other pockets of Grange, we have seen homes that have been newly built on larger blocks of land that might be 600 or even slightly more, selling into the 3 mils, certainly up close to the $4 million price point. So again, this is in the same suburb, but depending on the location, the size of the property and the quality of the property, you will have such disparity between the price that you may need to pay.
So a little bit different to the 1,480,000 when we're talking about median price for an area like Grange, for example.
And it's no wonder that people get confused about what their budget will buy, because when they're looking at a median value, it's a reflection of what has sold. And of course, in the last 12 months, we've been through one of the fastest downturns, according to median value changes, that Brisbane's ever recorded. And equally, we've been through a very rapid recovery over the last 9 months, back to the point where property prices are now very similar to where they were when the interest rates started to increase last year. So very interesting times, but really important for buyers to understand that the median value is a reflection of what has actually sold in the most recent period that has passed, not necessarily a reflection of what your budget will buy in that particular location.
So we'll move out of Grange and we'll have a look at unit townhouse side of things. What we'll do is we'll go in a little bit closer from Grange, still on the north side, to Hurston. Hurston's an area near the Royal Brisbane Hospital. There's the QUT precinct. There's the university set up at the medical area at the Royal Brisbane. So quite a popular area. You do get more townhouses units in this area, not far from Ballymore for the rugby, and also Vic Park with the new redevelopment, which is going to happen there shortly.
Yeah, look, it's already underway. The Victoria Park Golf Complex has closed its doors to the public golf, or the 18-hole golf course that I think it used to operate. Still can get your putt-putt there, and a great place to go for a meal or a function, very good function centre as well. But the parkland itself, it has been open for public use, and gradually they will be upgrading that to be a huge redevelopment, which is really going to be a destination in itself. So Hurston sits right on the border of that, and rightly so. Scott has also pointed out, next to the big Hurston Medical Precinct as well, and also earmarked for the Metro, Brisbane Metro, will run through to Hurston. So very easy access into the CBD from Hurston, already on the Brisbane busway as well.
So Hurston itself, then, if you look at the unit, median unit value, this is all obviously through CoreLogic, $644,000.
And this is something that, really can put buyers off one way or another. So a median value of $644,000 for a unit. Remembering I said earlier that units data for CoreLogic will also capture townhouses. So we've got 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 1-car units grouped in with 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, double lock-up, garage townhouses in the same suburb, all grouped into a median value. Extremely unreliable if you are looking at a median to determine what a property might be worth, especially when there's so much what we call compositional bias. You cannot compare a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, double lock-up garage townhouse with its own land component with a unit that might actually be a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom unit in a complex of 20. So very different types of products, and you must understand the different types of products. But also, as we've pointed out previously, you must also understand where in that suburb a property is located to get an indication of what that value or what that property might be worth.
So if you look at some properties, and this is where we can bounce between the two different ones. So a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom unit, for example, in this area, you're probably, from what's selling at the moment, you're probably looking at $500,000 upwards to get yourself a 2-bed, depending on the quality, depending on the location again, which is what we talk about. But you're probably looking at $500,000 plus upwards for a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom unit.
The other thing that's going to depend or determine the price that you will pay is the size of the unit, the floor plan. Obviously, not every 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom unit is going to be the same size, and the quality. So not every original units are going to be a lot cheaper than those units that may have had some renovation over time. Obviously, brand new units that may be selling in a location will also be worth more because you're paying a lot more for the brand new building products. I will say, when you move into a second car space in a suburb like this, it does add a lot of value to the dwelling itself, because when you are in these inner city precincts, street parking becomes a lot more difficult. So there's more value applied to a car park in an inner city location than there is in an area that might be 40 or 50 kilometres from the CBD with an abundance of parking space on the street. So we put a value on that as buyer's agents, of course, and that also does increase the value proposition for any potential buyers.
You do get a lot of restricted parking in some areas. So that's what, as you're talking there, once you start to get closer to the city, closer to facilities, things like that, there will start to become that restriction in parking. So having that second car park, especially for a 2-bedroom unit, for example, it's quite valuable. And then you look at something like a townhouse. Okay, so if we then compare it to a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1-car townhouse, you're probably looking at the 7, 8, probably 8 to 850 even mark for a townhouse.
And again, depending on the floor plan size and the quality, entry level probably around that $700,000 mark. Some more recent sales that have been up-spec'd a little internally between 8 and 850. But if you're looking at a brand new or very new product that might have 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom and double lock-up garage on site, you're probably then looking closer to 1.5, 1.4 to $1.5 million.
Yep.
So again, these are similar types of products in the same suburb, but depending on where in the suburb they're located, the size of the building and the quality, it's going to determine what you need to pay. And so when we look at some of these numbers and we reflect back to the unit median value of $644,000, that is only going to buy you probably an up-spec'd 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom unit. You might get a second bathroom if the quality drops a little bit as well. So again, it's so important to understand what that budget will buy before you actually, start looking in the market.
Now, I hope we're not confusing everyone with all these numbers sort of going everywhere, but you can understand when we talk about the local knowledge and the understanding the local market. Okay, because some people will just look at median prices and go, oh, look, that's what the median price is. That's what I can afford. I want to go and buy in that area, and that's how much money I'm going to need. That's where that local knowledge will come in, and we know these areas so well. We know what's selling. We know what properties are worth, whether they're on a main road, whether they need renovation, all those types of things. So,
the thing is also, it's not what sold 3 months ago. It's actually what sold last weekend at auction that becomes most relevant to the current buyers, because we are in an appreciating market where values are changing quite rapidly. So we really need to understand what the current market is paying for similar products, not what was paid 2 or 3 months ago, because the market has shifted potentially 3 or 4% over the last 3 or 4 months. And we need to factor that into any pricing that we would do for our clients.
So we're going to jump over on the south side, and we're just going to have a look at Camp Hill. Really popular area again. We've picked a couple of areas that are really popular, obviously, because families, schools, great locations. Again, the owner occupiers, and as we said previously, when we looked at Grange was 76%, Camp Hill is 72%. So a lot of owner occupiers again. As you can tell, people get into these areas, they want to live in there, whether they're new houses, whether they're renovating, but they will actually buy in there and they will stay in there. And the median price for Camp Hill is $1,390,000.
So that is the median house price.
I'm not sure what you buy at the moment in Camp Hill for that. There's a big range in Camp Hill then. Again, a little bit similar probably to Grange in a way, but you've got properties that are selling at the moment $3-4 million. Some can pick up some city views over that way as well, if you're lucky, but that'll push your dollar up. But then if you get in on a busier road, again, you'll be dropping down in some prices.
And just to quote a few of the more recent sales, if you are on a busy road and you're shopping in the low $1 million price point on Stanley Road, you could have picked up a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1-car property on 607 square metre block of land, so $1,050,000. So, but again, you will be on a busy road. You can never change the location. And we do know, based on transport studies that we look at from Infrastructure Australia, that the roads and congestion in Brisbane are getting worse and will continue to get worse as we increase the size of our population and we become more densely populated. If you've got a slightly higher budget for $1,120,000, you might have got a smaller block of land on the same busy road, Stanley Road, but you've got a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, double lock-up garage property. Most homes that are going to be on sizable blocks for families will be upward of $2 million in this location. So again, if you're looking at a median value and you start shopping in a location expecting to buy a family home on a 600 square metre block, you're simply going to be shopping well above the budget that you have set for the purchase.
So quite a big difference when you start to look, and as we said, back on that Camp Hill, we were 1,390,000 was median. You're almost at that sitting on a busy road on a smaller block of land.
Which is exactly what we found when we looked at the Grange data. Yep. And if you're shopping somewhere between $1.5 million and $1.7 million in Camp Hill, you might get a smaller block with a home that is somewhat newer, certainly not brand new, or you'll get a larger block, but you'll get an old home that might need some work. So again, it's very dependent on the price that you're willing to pay, but also the quality, the size, and the location. And these are the 4 factors that always come into a purchase and determining the budget that you need to put forward for the home that you're looking for. We could go through a lot more suburbs because we know a lot of detail about the difference between the median house or unit value and what's actually transacting on the ground. But obviously, we've run out of time in this episode.
I think the biggest thing for people to understand is the information that, and we obviously bring the market updates every month, but we do talk about, and we say this so many times over and over, we are talking about Greater Brisbane. Okay, it's the local knowledge that we have here locally with the team here at Streamline Property Buyers that we pull everything apart. We know different suburbs, and we know those suburbs individually. So Greater Brisbane compared to everywhere individually is a big change. And obviously that median price is something you need to be aware of.
And the other thing that I'll just say there about local knowledge is sometimes there will be an outlier. And I know in conversations that we might have with property buyers, it's like, yes, but this one sold in this suburb and that would have been in my budget. And then because of our local knowledge, we're able to articulate very clearly why that is an outlier. And we might know the specific circumstances around why that property may have transacted at a price that appears less than what it would otherwise have transacted for. So understanding the story as to why something may have sold cheaper, perhaps there was some damage that was unreported, there was a building and pest inspection that brought up some issues, there was white ant damage, perhaps there's flood risk that a lot of people might not have thought to check. There might have been some issues with a body corporate scheme if it was something under a body corporate. So these are the sorts of things that local knowledge, and when you're in the market every single week and every single weekend, you get to understand what is transacting. And when you see an outlier, often there is an explanation as to why that has occurred, and we're able to then share that information with our clients.
Well, hopefully that's been some useful information. Hopefully we didn't sort of confuse people too much with numbers going everywhere. But look, if you're unsure, feel free to reach out to the team at Streamline Property Buyers and have a chat to us. More than willing to have a chat. It doesn't cost anything to talk to us. And again, for those people out and about on weekends, we love it when people tap us on the shoulder and say they love the podcast as well. So I will let Melinda wrap it up as usual. Thank you very much for listening, and take care and bye for now.
So just to wrap up from my end, I just wanted to leave you with that tip. Before you start shopping for property, make sure you understand which compromise you're prepared to make first. Is it price, location, quality, or size? It's going to help you get clarity over making a transaction sooner and not then missing out on property and experiencing that opportunity cost of delay, which is the cost that the market continues to shift as you're making your decision about where and what to buy. As always, I hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Brisbane Property Podcast. If you enjoy our content, please subscribe. And also don't forget to share this episode with friends and family. We'd love for you to leave us a review, 5 stars if possible, but any review that you feel necessary. We look forward to speaking with you again next week. Bye for now.